other projects in this initiative were announced just before the pandemic, which grounded them to a halt before planning really got started. We are now ready and excited to get more of these back underway. Even before this new focus, we were commissioning artists from diverse backgrounds to create monumental artworks in our city. For instance, artist Hank Willis Thomas's Unity on Tillery Street in downtown Brooklyn, an enormous arm raised from the medium and pointing to the sky in a gesture that's open to interpretation. At 70 Mulberry Street in Manhattan's Chinatown, a community hub which suffered a devastating fire in January 2020 and is rebuilt by the city, we recently commissioned artist Jennifer Wenma to work with the building's designers to create an artwork that reflects the facility's central role for its surrounding community. Whether we call them monuments or not, these large-scale pieces are shaping our public spaces and connecting with deep currents of history, identity, and values which run throughout our communities. In addition to community buy-in, another measure of success is Percent for Arts are the awards that our projects and the artists who create them received. In the last 5 years, Percent for Art has received 11 awards of excellence in design, over 1/5 of all such awards given. And one award was a special recognition for the Percent for Art program itself. Our artists have gone on to be inducted into the National Academy of Design. They've received MacArthur Awards. Jeffrey Gibson, who received 2 Percent for Art commissions, including one at PS 26 in Brooklyn, will represent the US at the 2024 Venice Biennale, the first indigenous artist to have a solo exhibition in the US Pavilion there. And they've continued to create works in the public realm across New York and beyond. Hank Willis Thomas just created a new monument honoring Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King in Boston. Gene Shin created a mural from repurposed buttons at the new Perlman Performing Arts Center in Lower Manhattan. As I mentioned earlier, we're proud that Percent for Art provides so many artists a prominent entry point into creating permanent public commissions. For the program's 40th anniversary, which we've been celebrating throughout the year, we've had a number of opportunities to highlight Percent projects. Starting in May, the steps of City Hall were wrapped in images from Percent for Art commissions in the 5 boroughs. Later last month, we led fully booked tours and engagement of Percent projects as part of Open House New York weekend, and we've got more in store in the weeks and months ahead. We're proud of the hundreds of public artworks created over the lifetime of the program, from Ellen Harvey's Mathematical Star in the heart of Bed-Stuy to Josiah Booker's Sugar on My Bowl 2 in Weeksville Heritage Center, and to the Totally Kids Carousel in Harlem's Riverbank State Park, which kids had the active role in designing, to Nobuo Nagasawa's Luminescence in Long Island City. The list goes on, but these artworks are so important to the sense of place in each of these locations and do so much to bring the brilliance of the city's artists into lives of New Yorkers every day. In 2017, then Councilmember Laurie Cumbo co-sponsored legislation that updated Percent for Art funding formula for the first time since the program was created. Increasing the funding allotment to artworks and adjusting for realities of inflation and the cost of fabrication has allowed us to create more durable, high-quality works. Due in part to this update, we've been very excited to have dozens of projects in the pipeline. Artist Oasa Duvernier is creating a series of reflective portraits of influential authors from the African diaspora from Brooklyn for the Brooklyn Public Library Eastern Parkway branch. Artist David Rios is creating a vibrant mural inspired by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, short stories at the Hunters Point Library. Christopher Myers is creating 2 site-specific stained glass installations for the renovated Brownsville Library in Brooklyn. Tatiana Rocha, The Hawk and the Heron, will grace a new annex in the Snug Harbor Music Hall on Staten Island. And Katrine Sigadorotir commissioned one of the upcoming Rego Park libraries in Queens, consisting of a large mural that will be integrated within the library and an artist book that will be included into the library's collection. The more involved our partners are, including City Council, the more successful the program can be. We need you to recommend artists for our community, from your communities to submit to our registry. We need you to encourage panels, to engage in panels when projects are commissioned in your district. Together, we can make sure the next 40 years of this program continues to see it bringing artworks to our city in both bold and community-driven, just like the rest of our city. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for your testimony. I wanted to start by asking, where can we guide artists and folks that we know to submit to your artist registry?
Okay, so we have a Percent for Art website specifically put aside for artists to submit, email address specifically for artists to submit information to, and it's percentinfo@culture.nyc.gov.
And what's the timeline in which artists who are submitting their work to this website, what's the timeline on them seeing, coming through a panel process and potentially being evaluated for having their art presented in one of these public arts?
So we have a rolling application process,
Okay.
and we always have a number of projects in the works. There's also no guarantee that,
Sure.
if you submit to the registry, you will be given a commission. So, it's as soon as possible, you put it in the pool and we show the work, and hopefully you'll be called as a finalist. So there's no definitive timeline. It's constantly being activated.
And how many applications or submissions do you see a year?
It depends. So sometimes we do a call to artists for specific projects, and we get an influx of applicants in our registry. Other times it's just flowing regularly. So I would say, about 200 a year.
Okay. And how do you get the word out in terms of folks who apply? Is it solely through DCLA, something that you put out in an email blast, or what's the medium in which you get the word out about folks who could submit?
So we get the word out in a number of different ways. So for every time we start a project, that first meeting of the community board, for example, we use that as an opportunity to let people know that this is an opportunity, and we get the word out. When we have a new project that we want to solicit new artists, we may do a call to artists and get the word out that way. We will put it through our social media accounts. We may take out an ad in NIFA, and other ways like that. So this is some of the ways that we get the word out.
I'm not sure if you do this already, because I don't think I've noticed this, but it could have been slipped in my inbox. But do you guys do any outreach to local council members and elected officials on making sure that they're aware that
yes,
that they can send
whenever
this out
we
to?
start a project, that's the first thing we do is we
Okay.
send a letter to the local council members, letting them know that the project exists, and asking them for suggestions of artists and panelists as well.
And in terms of the panel, is it a different panel per project?
Yes, every single panel is tailored to the community and the
Okay.
project.
Very cool. Another question that I wanted to ask is, I think you answered this in terms of like how the panels are chosen. Is that, community board members, local elected officials, stakeholders within the community, they correspond with DCLA, and DCLA picks those panelists through their discretion?
Yeah, and so we don't just pick, if you want to participate in the process, you can participate in the process one of two ways. You would either be a voting member, and we choose voting members with a community tie-in, but with an art background or some kind of art knowledge. And our advisors include anyone else who wants to participate, including the general public in our panel process.
Before my next question, I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Fidias has joined us. I also want to, and I'm not sure I think you may have touched on this in your testimony, but the funding for these works comes through DCLA's larger pot of funding. Is that correct? No?
No.
Okay.
The funding for the Percent for Art projects come from the capital project itself.
Okay.
So we take a percentage of that to
Perfect.
commission
Okay.
the artwork.
Yeah. And what's that specific percentage for those capital projects that goes towards art?
So there's a whole math attached to that. As of 2018, it's 1% of the first 50 million,
Okay.
and 0.5% above that, with not not required to exceed $900,000 per project.
And how much of around, you know, what is the commission that these artists get for these projects?
So our commissions range from a $50,000 art budget to $1 million. And the artist gets, just for being the artist, 20% of whatever that art budget is. And the rest of the funds goes towards the fabrication, installation, anything that has to do with the creation of the artwork.
Is DCLA currently required to report on the current status of the Percent for Art program and the progress of the commissioned works?
Yes, and so once the projects are complete, we sort of list them on open data. And whenever we have a community board meeting, or a public meeting rather, we put that information on our website.
And in your own beliefs, do you find that the Percent for Art has actually made art more accessible to the people in the public of New York City?
Yes, and I've been, this is my second time around with the program, having started as an intern. And within the art world, we don't get to, the majority of the public don't get to go to museums and galleries, right? Sometimes it's a little bit of an intimidation factor. And so bringing artwork in spaces that is publicly accessible, that is quality artwork,